Welcome to your West Ham news, and we're going to do a quick video on Manuel Pellegrini's press conference earlier for the preview of the Everton game, but it's got nothing to do with the Everton game. And Pellegrini was asked a few questions about Declan Rice's call-up, etc. One of the questions was put to him about the apparent interest in Declan Rice in the top six after rumours this morning were linking Manchester United to Declan Rice alongside a couple of other players such as Jadon Sancho and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Gonzo, I'll give you the quote, and for those wanting the full conference, go listen to it. But we're just going to concentrate on one little quote, which is relating to Declan Rice. And this was Pellegrini's response to being asked about Declan Rice and the top six. He says, "It is just a matter of price. If it's a good deal for the club, player, and he improves his career, then we can do it." What's your instant reaction, Gonzo?
Well, that's a negotiation. That's the vernacular of somebody that's negotiating. There's no doubt about that at all. I think you just use very, very different language if he wasn't for sale, and even just if you saw his place being at West Ham, even for the next 2 years, your language would be slightly different, and it's not going to be any of this lost in translation because it was the press conference for the Everton game, and even before he arrived at Manchester City, his grasp of the English language is absolutely fine. Just he understands it perfectly well. He knows what he's saying, and I think he's a man that measures his words. He's not someone that flies off the handle and says a load of stuff, then sort of regrets it. You get the impression that this man thinks before he speaks. So I think you can read quite a lot into it.
Are you surprised by the perhaps honesty of the manager, or are you seeing this as sort of not quite shop window comment, but something similar?
Am I surprised? I guess I'm not surprised because you seem to let me know everything that's going on about West Ham now. You messaged me today, and I was at work, and obviously I read it. Was I surprised when I got the message? Not particularly. Manuel Pellegrini, if he's on a 3-year contract, which he is, and so he's done one of them already, is it advantageous for him to sort of groom Declan Rice into an all-encompassing central midfielder? Probably not. If he feels his budget has been limited for the next window as well, and he can get silly money for Declan Rice. So today, funny enough, on the forum, even before this, somebody had said on the forum, said that West Ham would be going to get somebody called Mate. Suliho Mate. I've probably butchered that name, by the way. He plays in Torino. And he put a video up with this guy. Now, the guy looked very, very good. Central midfielder. More box-to-box than Declan Rice. But I looked at it and I thought, this is a very, very good player. At the time, I wasn't thinking about Declan Rice being sold, of course, because he's a different type of player. But this guy's probably going to be around for 25, 30 million, and he looks perfectly suited to the Premier League. And I just wonder how many of these 30, 25 million, 30 million pound players is Julius and Pellegrini aware of? They probably think that if they sell Declan Rice, that they can improve the team just by selling him. They could probably overhaul the whole midfield rather than just having one sort of superstar defensive midfielder.
When I seen the comments, I seen the comments pretty much straight after he'd done the press conference, etc. And I was surprised, but I'm quite calm about it. I just see it as our manager being brutally honest. There's nothing in that he said that I think, oh, that's not right, that's not true, because it's quite the opposite, actually. I've read and thought, well, you're bang on. Every player in this world has a price. The second best player in the world just went from Real Madrid to Juventus last summer. Everybody has a price in football. Declan Rice has a price. And anyone that says, oh no, we won't sell Declan Rice, well, let's ask a hypothetical question. Would you sell him for 250 million? Of course you would. Now we've agreed you would sell him. Let's discuss the price, okay? So he would go. So Pellegrini is basically just saying, look, if a top six club comes in and Declan wants to go, because he does mention about how it's got to be improving his career and it's got to be the right deal for the player as well. So he's saying if it is the right one for Declan, then something will have to be arranged between the clubs. But what he's not saying, he's definitely not saying is he's going cheap or he is going. He's basically saying you will have to pay the price. Now, that price could be extortionate. That price could be 100 million, and no one will want to pay that. So that way Declan can't get his move. But I just think his way of saying is, look, we've got a price for every player in our squad. Every player in our squad has a price. You want one of them, you come to us and we'll tell you the price. You want that player, you pay the money, and then you'll get him. It's as simple as that. And that goes for every single one of the players at West Ham United. I just see it as him saying, eventually, if Declan does do as well as we're all expecting, he will go to a top 6 club. But to get him out of West Ham, you're going to have to pay a shed load of money. The other thing is, it does sort of tie in with a 25 million budget in a little way. And that is, we discussed it a couple of weeks ago. We don't want Obiang, we don't want Masuaku or Bona. Doesn't mean other clubs are going to want them. So if Pellegrini's raising money, the best way or the quickest way he's going to raise a lot of cash is by selling one of his most desirable players. There's only a handful of them in his squad. Diop, Rice, possibly Balbuena, Anderson, Lanzini, maybe. They're your big money, your big ticket players. And Pellegrini, like you said, might be looking at it thinking, well, if I shift one of them, I can go get 3 players in for that one player's price. And sometimes you do need to take one step back in order to take 2 steps forward. The question is, do you have confidence in West Ham United taking a step? Well, we've all got confidence on taking a step back. That's the problem. But do we have confidence in West Ham United then taking the 2 steps forward with the money? Should we get money for any player, not just Declan Rice? And that's where the discussion lies, I guess. But in terms of Pellegrini's comments, I think it's just him being honest. I mean, there's nothing incorrect with what he said in theory, is there?
No, there's nothing incorrect, but I think there's a little bit more urgency to it. I think he could have turned around and he could have said, we're not looking to sell Declan Rice at this time. At some point in the future, Declan Rice may well leave us, but he's just signed a new contract and we're looking to build a team around him at present. That would also be correct. As you say, there's nothing incorrect about what he said. Well, what I've just said, there's nothing incorrect about that. So you can still say things that are correct, but sort of guide the language in a certain way. So I just think the fact that he's done that, he's probably reacting to this Manchester United speculation. There's no coincidence that Solskjaer has now signed on the dotted line on a 3-year contract as well. And that after you'd spoken to me, sent me the text, I had a look at it and I saw that they were being linked with the players that you said, Sancho, Wan-Bissaka, Declan Rice. And apparently they were going to spend 170 million on getting the 3. Well, it ain't going to get the 3. Because I tell you now, Crystal Palace, because I thought like Wan-Bissaka for quite a while, and I thought actually I'm not even totally sure 50 million is going to get him out of there because Crystal Palace can do what they want. So I think you're playing more than 50 for him. Sancho, I think you're going to struggle with 40. I really do. I mean, they're going to be looking to make big money on him. Borussia Dortmund, because that's their model. They've got rid of Pulisic, of course, to Chelsea. I think possibly 65 million to Chelsea. Maybe I'm being tight with 40. They might look for 50. They might look for 60. So what we're going to do, accept 50 million for Declan Rice? I don't think we will. So I don't think they're getting their wish list, Man United, for 170 million. I think they're going to have to pay a bit more than that to get who they want. Unfortunately, this is just part of being West Ham. Just when we've got over the Arnie saga, as it were, that's run and run and run. I think this is going to run and run and run. It's going to feature every single transfer window until he goes, Gia.
What is your hypothetical price tag? What price would? Well, there's 2 questions here. I suppose there's one: what do you think West Ham would get for him? And the second is, what would you like to get for him? I.e., what do you price him up at?
I think if we could get Virgil van Dijk money for him, we'd have done tremendously well, Gio, because he's not as good as Van Dijk at the moment, but he's got his whole career ahead of him, of course. And I think we do very well. I think it's unrealistic to think we can get 100 million for Declan Rice. We can't. 100 million central midfielder that's promising and up and coming is going to be is going to be box to box, scoring goals. It would almost be a young Steven Gerrard, let's say, would be 100 million. So I don't think Declan Rice is quite there yet. But I also don't think, I think 50 million would be insulting. So, somewhere in between, which is the Van Dijk money, which is about 75 million. I wouldn't be surprised if the figure is that or thereabouts. And I'm pretty sure Pellegrini would feel that he could replace Declan Rice with an equal player for that. I bet he's got his eye on other central defensive midfielders for 30 million that can do the job that Rice can do. He would feel.
Yeah, I agree. He won't be English. He won't be as young as Declan Rice, but I think there'll be someone of equal ability out there that, because he's not English and as well known as perhaps, that he's a bit cheaper. He's not proven in the Premier League, so you get a discount on it, don't you? So I think that's why I think that this story might have a bit of legs to it. I sort of dismissed these rumours. The Man City one's always worried me, but Man U, Chelsea, I just thought nah. But then now Pellegrini said that, I do think, well, I'm not saying we're seeking to sell him. There's a difference between actively looking to sell a player and sort of just accepting that you're going to have to sell someone if the money comes in. 75 million is a price I think would be fair. I think I would find it hard to say we've been mugged off, if you like, if we took 75. I'd be disappointed. 60 million, I'd be on the fence with 60. Anything less than 60, I would think was too cheap. Because I don't know. Declan is a rare player. He is very rare. He's English. He's 20 years old. I think he's played. I could be wrong here. I think he's played 90. He's played low 90 games for West Ham already. That's a lot of games in the first team at a Premier League club. So he's already got a lot of appearances. Wan-Bissaka has only played about 50. To put it into context, Wan-Bissaka is a year or two older than Declan and played half the games. Okay, so Declan is a unique situation player. There's not many 20-year-olds with that many games under their belt in the Premier League. It goes back to a bit like Raheem Sterling, John Stones. When they're good enough, they get the game time. But when they're getting the game time, that pushes your price right up into the upper echelons of transfer money. And that's where Declan Rice is sitting at now. I think the club can be very relaxed about this, because if he goes, we're going to get top dollar for him. Declan, we know, will not kick up a fuss. He will get his head down. He will do what he's been doing for the last 2 years. If he gets his transfer, good luck to him. If he doesn't, he will put. I'm sure we will see this season's performances next season as well, and his price will only go up. I don't think the only way we can lose here is by selling him too cheap, and I would be surprised if we did that. But that's all. And what's your final words on this? The statement from Pellegrini in particular.
The statement from Pellegrini in particular was what I said at the start, was sort of indicates that something is happening. And I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility that the scenario is starting to play out in a way I'm going to describe now, which is Edward Woodward, which is easy for me to say, says to Solskjaer, we're going to give you the new deal. There's the new deal. What are we going to need? What do you want? So Solskjaer says, okay, I'm going to need a winger. And I'm going to need a right back because Valencia's going, not quite happy about things there. And I need a central midfielder to free up Paul Pogba, not that happy with Fred. So he said, I'm going to go English. I want them to understand the Premier League. I don't want any risks, but I want them to be exceptional. So he said Sancho, he has said Wan-Bissaka, and he said Declan Rice.
Just to butt in for you there, I think that's got legs, because the best performing players under Ole so far have been English. He is rejuvenated Luke Shaw left back. Rashford is now looking like one of the best strikers in the Premier League. Lingard's playing his part. Chris Smalling's looking like a decent centre back again at Man United. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then Edward Woodward probably phones up Borussia Dortmund, but more easily probably phones up Steve Parish, who he probably knows, and says, "What's your price for Wan-Bissaka?" And he probably phones up David Sullivan, who he obviously knows, and says, "What's your price for Declan Rice?" And I'd imagine that happens before a single bid has gone in. He's going to test the water. That's what he's going to do. And I'd imagine at that price, David Sullivan, if he's got any sense, has turned around and said, we're just not looking to sell him at the moment, Ed. But you know what? We'll have a think about it. I don't, but we're not looking to sell him. He gets off the phone. David Sullivan turns around to Pellegrini instead of Man United on the phone. They're looking to buy Declan Rice. You're going to get all the money if we sell him. Do you want to sell him? What do you want to do? Because even David Sullivan's not going to upset Pellegrini by selling a player from under him. And I think, this is how I think it's played out. I think Pellegrini thought, okay, if I can get that money. So now Pellegrini's negotiating publicly and almost sending a message back to Ed Woodward, not via David Sullivan, to say, let's see what you got. You're going to have to pay some money to get him. Wouldn't be surprised if he's already planning. Wouldn't be surprised. I can see this happening quite quickly, Gio, if it happens.
I think he's also trying to spark a bidding war. I think he's maybe saying to Manchester City, you want him to replace Fernandinho? Well, your neighbours want him right now. So if you want him, you've got to come get him now, and you've got to bring your checkbook as well. To have the two Manchester clubs trying to outbid each other, it goes further than money a little bit. It almost comes down to like pride, integrity, who's the bigger club. Man United, the last thing they want is for Manchester City to get a player that they're after as well, because while Man City win things, Man U always claim they're still the bigger club. They're not, it's an Alex Ferguson thing, the noisy neighbours, if you like. The last thing you want is for your noisy neighbours to come pinch the player that you're after as well, especially when you're trying to do this whole you know how we got a tweet the other week? We're building something. Well, I don't know if Declan Rice is going to come into that, but we're building something special with New Year season ticket. Man United are probably saying the same thing to their fans right now. We're now rebuilding here. We're rebuilding young players. And the last thing you want to happen during your rebuilding process is for Manchester City to snatch one of your top targets. So I wouldn't be surprised if Pellegrini is trying to inflict a bidding war here between those two clubs in particular, because I think they're the only two clubs that would pay that much money for Declan Rice. I don't think he would appeal as such to European clubs. Bayern Munich is maybe the only one, or maybe Dortmund, but Bayern Munich have now just gone and spent £67 million on the left back, and they're after Callum Hudson-Odoi as well. That's their number one target. So that just leaves two Manchester clubs for me. So I wouldn't be surprised Pellegrini trying to flick that. The only thing I would say about this is this is what troubles me a little bit. Pellegrini does not talk about transfer targets. If West Ham are linked to a player, Pellegrini will always say, I don't want to talk about transfer rumours. I'm not talking about it. Move on. And even when we're close to signing someone, he will still say, I don't want to discuss it. There's nothing to tell you. You know, when it's done, it's done. That's when you know about it. Until then, got nothing to say. So he's always slammed transfer rumours down. Nada. He does not discuss them. But this one, instead of saying, I don't want to discuss it, move on, he's gone, well, actually, he's got a price. The price is right, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a look, it's not in Pellegrini's sort of what I expect from Pellegrini. This is what surprised me. It's a change. It's not what I'm used to from Pellegrini. You know what I'm trying to say. The pattern is not in the pattern of Pellegrini's responses, if you like. And that's the only potential, not worrying thing, but the thing is there. But a good club, a good director of football should be able to take 75 million and bring in three really good players for West Ham United, at least three really good players. So I suppose Pellegrini's thinking we'll lose one key player, but we have the opportunity to solve the left back problem once and for all, solve the right back problem for once and for all, and replace Declan Rice. And that's before I've spent my kitty of 25 million, and that's before I've tried to replace an Average, etc. But this is the only other thing I'm going to add here. This kitty of 25 million, the world knows it now. I'm not saying that makes us desperate, but if someone comes in for Declan Rice, they know West Ham only have £25 million to spend. Managers, every manager wants to bring in his own players. He wants to change his squad up. As a Premier League club, top half table, there's not much you can do with 25 million. Clubs, Man U, Man City will know that. They will know Pellegrini can't do much for 25 million. So Rice all of a sudden becomes obtainable as long as you get in there quick. If you wait until Obiang, Masuaku and Obona are sold and Pellegrini's got 100 million, he might be thinking, I'm fine, I've got plenty of money here. I don't need it. But if you get in there first when Pellegrini's still only got £25 million in his little chest, it might be tempting for Manuel. And this is the problem with having a manager on a 2-year contract, because as you said at the start, why should Pellegrini invest in Declan Rice's future? Pellegrini only cares about the next 2 years at West Ham. If he plans to stay and he does stay, fantastic. We might see him plan for 5 years' time. But right now, Pellegrini's priority and only priority is next season and the following season, because that's the only 2 years he's got left at West Ham. Until we sort that, he's only going to plan for the next 2 years. I don't blame him for not planning for years 3 and 4 once he's gone. Huselos, however, needs to plan for that. But then this goes back to my point I made a year ago. This is the problem when you hire a manager and the manager picks a director of football, because the director of football is going to side with the manager and do what the manager wants, not the other way around. And that's where it comes to sort of hierarchy at West Ham United. And I think it's the wrong way around. We've almost got our manager above the director of football. And that's a bit strange at West Ham. But anyway, Gonzo, that's it for your West Ham news tonight. Big news from Pellegrini, if it could be. Let us know below in the comments what you think of Pellegrini's quote. I put it in the live chat. If you go in the live chat, and when you're watching this, at the very top, it's got Pellegrini's quote there, black and white for you as well, in case you're wondering what it was. It's just a matter of price. If it's a good deal for the club player and he improves his career, then we can do it, and we will leave you with that. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new around here. And me and Gonzo will see you very, very soon.